Imagine a world where every creature is locked in a silent race against time, not to conquer land, not to build empires, but to simply pass on life itself. From the tiniest insects to massive prehistoric beasts, survival was never truly about the individual. It was about ensuring that life didn't stop with them. Now here's the question. What if reproduction had failed? Would our species, or any species, even exist today? Long before there were humans, animals, or even plants, the very first spark of life appeared on Earth. These were not creatures with eyes, muscles, or thoughts. They were simple, single-celled organisms floating in the primordial soup. Yet, even at this earliest stage, one silent truth defined their existence. To continue, they had to reproduce. Without reproduction, life would have been nothing more than a temporary flicker, extinguished as quickly as it appeared. At first, reproduction was astonishingly simple. Cells made copies of themselves. Through a process we now call asexual reproduction, an organism could split into two identical versions, passing on its genetic blueprint. Imagine one cell becoming two, two becoming four, and so on. This method worked well for billions of years, ensuring life spread across the oceans. But there was one major problem. Everything was a copy. If the environment changed and perhaps the water became colder, hotter, or toxic, those identical copies were at risk of all dying out together. That's where evolution stepped in with an extraordinary innovation: sexual reproduction. Instead of copying themselves exactly, organisms began to exchange and combine their genetic material, producing offspring that were not identical, but unique. Each offspring carried new possibilities, some stronger, some weaker, but all different. This difference was the real secret weapon of survival. So from the very start, reproduction wasn't just about making more life. It was about adapting, adjusting, and preparing for an unpredictable future. Without it, no species, not even ours, could have stood the test of time. When we think about reproduction, it might seem obvious that sexual reproduction is better, but nature rarely works in absolutes. Both asexual and sexual reproduction have their own strengths and their own risks. Asexual reproduction, as seen in many bacteria, plants, and some animals, is efficient. It doesn't require a partner, it doesn't take extra energy, and it guarantees that a successful genetic formula is passed on exactly. If the environment is stable and safe, this method is like having a winning lottery ticket and simply photocopying it again and again. Quick, reliable, and effective. But the flaw lies in its very strength: sameness. A whole population of identical beings means that one well-aimed disaster, a new disease, a sudden climate change, or a stronger competitor could wipe them out entirely. Nature doesn't reward repetition forever. Sexual reproduction, on the other hand, is costly. It requires finding a mate, which itself can be dangerous. Many animals fight, dance, or display to earn the right to reproduce, sometimes risking injury or death in the process. Even after mating, there's no guarantee of survival for the offspring. Predators, starvation, and bad luck are constant threats. So why did sexual reproduction persist? The answer is variety. Each offspring carries a shuffled genetic deck, a fresh combination of traits that might help them survive where their parents could not. This biological lottery is what allowed species to adapt to changing environments and challenges. In the end, the trade-off was worth it. Nature favored diversity because diversity meant resilience. Without this evolutionary gamble, humanity and countless other species might never have existed. At its core, survival is only half the equation of life. An organism that survives but doesn't reproduce is, from nature's perspective, a dead end. This is why reproduction isn't just an event. It's the very reason survival matters in the first place. Think about it. A gazelle doesn't develop speed just to outrun lions for fun. Its survival means little unless it passes that speed to the next generation. A tree doesn't spread deep roots only to stand tall against storms. It does so to ensure it can flower, bear seeds, and let new trees rise after it. Survival serves reproduction, not the other way around. This link is so deep that entire behaviors across species are shaped around reproduction. Birds migrate thousands of miles, not only for food, but to reach nesting grounds. Salmon swim upstream, against impossible currents, driven by an instinct that compels them to reproduce before they die. Even humans, with all our technology and comforts, are still influenced by subtle drives tied to attraction, mating, and legacy. Reproduction ensures that traits, behaviors, and survival strategies are carried forward. Without it, life would stop at a single generation. That's why every evolutionary advancement, from camouflage to claws, wings to intelligence, ultimately ties back to this one question. Can it help me or my offspring survive long enough to reproduce? In the grand scheme, reproduction is not simply about making more life. It's about continuity. It's about ensuring that the story of existence doesn't end with me, but stretches forward into countless us. That's the unbreakable bond between survival and reproduction. They are two sides of the same coin, forever intertwined. If you found this video thought-provoking, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss our deep dives. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What stood out to you the most? Your support helps us bring you even more amazing stories and insights. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring. For early humans, survival was never guaranteed. Predators roamed freely, food was scarce, and the environment was unpredictable. In such a harsh world, reproduction wasn't a casual act. It was a high-stakes strategy. Every birth mattered, because each new life represented a chance for the species to persist, and every misstep could cost both parent and child dearly. Early humans developed strategies to protect themselves and their offspring. They sought shelter in caves, built rudimentary barriers, and formed groups for mutual protection. But the real ingenuity was social. Cooperation wasn't just a convenience, it was survival itself. Tribes that shared food, looked after children, collectively, and defended each other against predators increased the odds that their genes would continue. Survival and reproduction became inseparable. The stronger the social bonds, the better the chance that children survived to adulthood. Mating, too, was strategic. Selection wasn't random. Humans, like other animals, were drawn to traits signaling health, strength, and intelligence. A strong mate didn't just promise attractive genes, they were better equipped to provide protection and resources. This meant that reproduction itself became a driver for evolutionary fitness, shaping not only our bodies, but our behaviors, instincts, and social structures. Even infancy and childhood demanded attention. Human babies are born relatively helpless compared to most animals, making parental care critical. Protecting and nurturing offspring was no longer optional. It was essential. Every moment spent guarding a child, teaching or feeding them, increased the likelihood that the next generation would survive, perpetuating the tribe, the species, and ultimately, human evolution itself. Reproduction wasn't just about survival. It shaped social life and daily existence. In early human societies, mating involved a mix of attraction, strategy, and competition. Those who could secure strong, healthy partners often had better chances of producing resilient offspring. Traits such as strength, intelligence, or even resourcefulness were signals, not vanity, but essential markers of reproductive fitness. Competition was fierce. Males often competed for access to mates, but the stakes were far higher than pride or status. Winning a partner could mean the continuation of your lineage. Losing could mean your genes were lost to the next generation. Females, meanwhile, made careful choices, seeking partners who could provide protection, food, and care for future children. These dynamics shaped not only physical traits, but social behaviors. Alliances, cooperation, and even conflict management evolved around the reproductive imperative. Reproduction also reinforced social hierarchies and community structures. Those with offspring had added responsibilities and influence, and groups developed norms and customs to protect children and regulate mating. This wasn't conscious culture at first, it was instinctual, a survival mechanism encoded into behavior. Caring for the young collectively, sharing food and defending against threats all became intertwined with reproductive success. Even environmental pressures influenced mating strategies. Scarce resources, predators, or harsh climates meant that timing, choice of location, and group coordination were critical. Humans learned to synchronize births with seasonal availability of food, seek safer nesting or sleeping areas, and work as a team to reduce mortality. In other words, reproduction dictated not just family life, but the rhythm of survival itself. In the prehistoric world, survival didn't end at birth. It extended into every fragile moment of a child's life. Human babies are born helpless, dependent on parents for warmth, food, and protection. Unlike many animals that can fend for themselves soon after birth, human infants required constant care. This vulnerability made reproduction a high-stakes endeavor. Producing offspring without ensuring their survival could mean wasted effort and evolution's harsh judgment. Early humans adapted in remarkable ways. They developed tools to hunt, gather and protect resources, ensuring that food and shelter were available for both adults and children. They learned to construct safe sleeping spaces and guard children from predators. Fire, one of humanity's earliest innovations, provided warmth, light, and a boundary against nocturnal threats, drastically increasing survival rates. Every technological or behavioral innovation was tied directly or indirectly to the survival of the next generation. Parental investment went beyond mere protection. Adults taught essential survival skills, identifying edible plants, crafting tools, and recognizing predators. Social learning became a form of reproduction in itself. Passing knowledge and skills ensured that the offspring could survive, thrive, and eventually reproduce. Communities began to recognize that shared caregiving improved survival odds. Group cohesion, communication, and cooperation weren't optional strategies. They were evolutionary imperatives. Even risk-taking was calculated through the lens of reproduction. Adults might forage or hunt in dangerous conditions, but only if the potential rewards enhanced the family's survival. Every action had reproductive consequences. In this way, human behavior, intelligence, and social structures evolved around one central fact. The species could only persist if offspring survived. Reproduction dictated priorities, shaped daily routines, and anchored the evolution of society itself. Reproduction didn't just ensure survival, it laid the foundation for civilization. Unlike most species, humans invested heavily in each offspring, nurturing, teaching, and protecting them over long childhoods. This investment wasn't just about immediate survival. It shaped culture, intelligence, and the future of the species. Every child who survived became a carrier of knowledge, a link in an evolving chain that would eventually create art, language, and technology. Early, humans developed family structures and social bonds to maximize survival. Parents, siblings, and extended family worked together to feed and protect children. In harsh environments, this cooperation wasn't optional, it was critical. A child left unprotected was likely to perish, and with them, the parent's genetic legacy could be lost. Over time, this necessity gave rise to shared responsibilities, collective problem-solving, and emotional bonds that reinforced group cohesion. But survival wasn't only physical, it was mental. Human brains grew larger and more sophisticated than those of any other species, in part because of the energy gained from cooperative living and careful nourishment of children. Teaching survival skills, passing down knowledge of edible plants, toolmaking, or navigating terrain became an essential part of reproduction. In other words, humans didn't just reproduce bodies, they reproduced culture, skills, and wisdom, ensuring that each new generation was smarter, more resourceful, and better prepared to survive. Reproduction also fostered emotional intelligence. Caring for infants demanded empathy, patience, and communication, traits that eventually influenced social hierarchies, moral codes, and collaborative strategies. In this sense, the act of bringing new life into the world shaped not only the species' physical evolution, but also the social and cultural evolution that set humans apart from all other creatures. As humans evolved, reproduction became more than a biological imperative. It became a social and cultural force. The survival of offspring depended not only on physical protection, but also on knowledge, cooperation, and shared norms. Communities developed rituals, traditions, and social rules to protect children, guide mating, and ensure that skills and values were transmitted across generations. Marriage, pair bonding, and family units emerged as adaptive strategies. These structures weren't just emotional or spiritual, they were survival mechanisms. A bonded pair could share resources, protect their young, and teach essential survival skills. Extended families and tribal networks multiplied the safety net. The larger the network, the higher the odds that children would reach adulthood and eventually reproduce themselves, keeping the species thriving. Mating and reproduction also influenced social hierarchies. Those who successfully reproduced and cared for multiple offspring often gained influence and status within their groups. Leaders, elders, and skilled providers were respected not just for power, but for their ability to perpetuate the tribe's genetic and cultural legacy. Social cohesion was intertwined with reproductive success, making collaboration, communication, and conflict resolution essential to survival. Even cultural knowledge, myths, rituals, stories, and traditions was passed along through generations, often framed around reproduction and family life. By sharing these lessons, humans ensured that each new generation was equipped not only to survive, but also to contribute to the community, reinforcing bonds and creating stability. In this way, reproduction didn't just preserve life, it shaped the very fabric of human societies. Reproduction has always been at the core of human survival, and today technology is extending its reach in ways early humans could never have imagined. With advancements in medicine, genetics, and reproductive technologies, humanity has gained unprecedented control over the continuity of life. Fertility treatments, in vitro fertilization, and genetic screening are modern tools that ensure survival in the face of challenges that once threatened entire populations. Artificial reproduction is not just a convenience, it's a safeguard. In regions facing infertility, disease, or environmental hazards, these technologies allow humans to continue their lineage. Beyond individual families, they also preserve genetic diversity, ensuring that populations can adapt to changing conditions. Much like early humans learned to use fire to protect offspring, modern humans are using science to shield their future generations from risks that nature alone cannot manage. But reproduction in the modern world isn't only biological, it's cultural and social. Through education, healthcare, and communication, societies are shaping how children are raised, how families function, and how communities thrive. Humans have taken the instinct to survive and transformed it into deliberate planning, long-term strategy, and ethical decision-making. Reproduction has evolved from a purely instinctual drive into a complex interplay of biology, society, and technology. Looking forward, humanity may face unprecedented challenges: climate change, overpopulation, or new diseases. The survival of the species will depend not only on our ability to reproduce, but on our ability to innovate and adapt. From simple cells in the primordial soup to the sophisticated societies of today, reproduction remains the thread that connects all life. It is both our past and our future, ensuring that humanity continues to thrive, evolve, and leave a legacy for generations yet to come.